The delineation of comic book history into specific ages is intrinsically tied to the superhero genre. This mainly occurs because that genre is directly associated with comic books. After all, it was the creation of superheroes that made a new medium unique and distinct from its newspaper origins. Of course, superheroes haven't always been the dominant genre, but they have been a steady presence since the very beginning of the medium. So it's no surprise that notable events in superhero history are what begins certain comic book ages. These are somewhat arbitrary points, but there is a reasoning behind them. There are other influential events that directly or indirectly affected the evolution of comic books from a primarily juvenile medium to its current state as a respectable method of artistic expression. Instead of focusing on one genre and its impact, this will contain many of the notable or significant developments of the medium. During the modern age, reprints of previously published material, often referred to as trade paperbacks, began to become a common practice. Initially, hard-to-find stories were collected in one volume, as opposed to issuing a second or third print of the original issues. Over time, this developed into all storylines of all titles, being collected shortly after a story arc was complete. This allowed comics to expand their presence to bookstores and to libraries. In current day, the term graphic novel is a shorthand phrase that refers to these trade paperbacks, although the strict definition of the term graphic novel doesn't actually apply to trade paperbacks. That term specifically refers to work that is complete. That is, the story, or a collection of short stories, have a definitive beginning, middle, and end, like a traditional novel. The aforementioned Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns conform to this definition, despite originally being serialized. However, most current graphic novels are chapters in a never-ending story. Like graphic novels, manga began to slowly but surely increase its presence in North America, primarily in collected, digest editions. The appeal and influence of manga on North American comics is vast. In many ways, their popularity is due to being an alternative to mainstream superhero content, which is the dominant genre in North America. Manga also has a distinct appeal to young adults, which was a market every form of media targeted during the 90s after the popularity of the Harry Potter series. In the new millennium, the comic book industry began to noticeably change. This was mainly due to three factors: the corporatization of publishers, the movie industry, and the proliferation of the internet. DC had almost always been a subsidiary of a parent company, and Marvel Comics attained that distinction in 2009. The two most popular companies had become, as some might say, intellectual property farms for multimedia conglomerates. Their identity is attached to the characters they own, rather than the style of comic they produce. Although it should be noted, being an intellectual property farm is not limited to these two companies. In modern times, most, if not all, publishers have established themselves with the foreknowledge that their comic books are properties. That is, the comic book material is a launching pad to licensing concepts to movies and TV. This is due, in part, to the rise of superhero movies and their widespread appeal. Notably, this is also extended to TV shows on streaming services. Movies and TV have given niche or obscure characters, such as Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Peacemaker, an opportunity to thrive, which proves that the thousands of characters, whether well-known or obscure, have potential to generate billions. Certainly, there is a lot of mid-level content that doesn't get widespread attention, such as Doom Patrol and Legion. And there is a fair amount of debatably bad content, such as the entire output of the Arrowverse, the moderately baffling Moon Knight, and the campy Riverdale. However, these examples, both good, bad, and indifferent, are simply a sign of a medium proliferating. Some translations will work, and some will not. It's just the law of averages. Regardless, superheroes or comic-based movies and TV have saturated popular culture. Much like the Silver Age, in the late modern age, the term comic book has become synonymous with the word superhero. Although, if one examines the medium itself, there is a variety of genres and themes represented. Superheroes may be the dominant genre, but there's a fair amount of space for other genres to succeed. The internet in general has had a noticeable effect on comic books. Every company in existence offers digital versions of their print material. Initially, most companies would withhold digital copies of their new releases to give comic book stores a sales window. This way, the print version wouldn't compete with the digital version. Over time, that window has gotten smaller and, in some cases, has ceased to exist. Sales figures for digital versions are not publicly available, so it's hard to discern the exact effect these virtual copies have on the print industry. The preference between print and digital is likely a debate between comic book fans that will continue well into the future. In North America, another debate erupted online about comic books. The debate revolved around the diversification of characters and their integration into mainstream titles. However, the word debate may be too generous. In actuality, it was an argument, a rather vicious argument that seemingly split the fan community into two distinct types of fans. There were those that either supported diverse characters and their representation, and those that preferred a traditional approach to superhero content. The latter position was easily translated into various social phobias. Creators and editorial staff were openly maligned for their perceived agenda. Some creators, who expressed support of a traditional model and criticized modern practices, found themselves unemployed. This led to the conspiracy-driven accusation that editors and publishers were forcing their open-minded views, political alignment, and their opinions on their audience and talent, and the talent were expected to agree with these positions or face repercussions. It was further argued this alleged agenda was having a negative impact on the industry. This air quotes debate led to a polarizing of comic book fandom. There is a distinct division between the two sides. However, it mirrors an equally present social atmosphere in modern culture. In the end, comics are a medium that have faced a variety of challenges through its existence, whether that be a literal censorship board or the general misperception that comics are trash. It has evolved from a primarily dispensable form of entertainment for children into an art form that can incorporate fine illustration with literate prose to produce something distinctly unique. Or it can be crude but sublime, silent and cartoony, or overly rendered and bombastic. There is no one correct form a comic book can take. It can be any style or any combination of styles and still be a comic book, and that makes for a powerful medium. Yet, its acceptance as a valid art form and source of entertainment for all ages is a somewhat recent development. But one could argue all those challenges, perceptual and otherwise, shape the medium into what it is today. Classically speaking, restrictions have always forced creative people to find a way to express themselves accurately or truthfully in their art, and comic books have been no exception. This is all reflected in the history of the medium. Hello again. I hope all you fine people are doing good. Well, now that this is done, what did you think of this history series? Does it need a little more work? What parts would you like to see expanded in the future? Leave your comments below and let me know. Just a quick note, the complete full-length video will be posted in a few days, once this part has a chance to breathe. Naturally, it won't have any of these end babble bits, and the ending will be slightly different. I'll throw in my production credit first, and then supporters. Speaking of support, if you made it this far in the video and you haven't subscribed, then, maybe you should? Or consider becoming a member or saying thanks. There is no such thing as a small sign of support, at least not to me. Okay, I'm keeping this brief because I have a complete Swamp Thing retrospective script that's looking at me sideways. And it's just as long as the script for this series. I mean, it covers 1982 to 2006. So I might break that up into smaller bits like this one before compiling it into one long-form video. And then there's World War Hulk, and the partially remade, updated version of the Miracle Man copyright saga, and Jacka's story. There's a lot to do, so I should get to it. Until next time.